We're here in the home of Dr. Poldine Carlo, an Athabascan Indian elder, and we have she has a wealth of information to share with us, and so we'd just like to interview her and ask her a few questions, so we feel privileged to be in her home today. So can you tell us, where are you from in Alaska?
Nulato, that's on the Yukon River.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about that area where you grew up in Nulato?
Nulato was a little modern place as I start remembering things. I'm 92 years old now, and already at that time, before I was born, they had a hospital there with a doctor and a nurse. They had the Signal Corps, they had the Catholic school, they had a jail, commissioner's office, the post office, and they just had everything modern. In fact, I don't even remember the first time I ever saw a plane, because they had it before I start remembering things.
Wow.
Around 1924, I think. And Nulato was established by the Russians in 1834, I think, somewhere around there.
Wow.
So a lot of our Indian language has the Russian language in it. That I never knew, because I just grew up that way, and I thought it was all Indian words.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Russians started that place, the Indians didn't know what stuff that they brought over, and they just, what they learned from the Russians, they used those words, and up to now, that's what we use. Mm-hmm. Like glass and tea and butter and stuff like that, skirts.
Mm-hmm. Did you have an Athabascan word for, like those different things, like you were saying, butter?
No, it's the Russians.
The Russian word that
we
you
just kept those words because it was new to them, and they picked it up from the Russians. Like butter is masla, sachar is sugar, wilder is stikla, your skirt is yochka, and babushka is your scarf. A lot of our words are Russian words.
a blending.
Even Daya, that's a Russian word, but people seem to think that's an Indian word. It's not.
I didn't know that.
I
didn't know that.
Yeah. Look it up at the university.
Okay, yeah, good idea.
Really?
And what did you like to do as a young girl? Would you often just play out in did you have a lot of tundra area there in Nulato?
We don't have no tundra.
No tundra.
A lot of woods, though, and gravel.
And then, what type of housing did you live in? What was it, a sod house or a frame house?
I never even saw a sod house in my life. They had mostly log cabins, and then like the hospital and the mission, they were all made out of lumber. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how was your home? You were in a log cabin. How was that heated?
Well, wood stove. Some people still do, and I think that's so comfortable to just put wood in the stove, and you get your heat from that. It's just beautiful. When I think back, I don't see that anymore, and I think to myself, gosh, what a wonderful life I had that I never ever thought would come to an end, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's really sad when I go home, and in my mind, it's when I was growing up in the village. That's all I could think about, not what they have right now. Mm-hmm. They changed so much. They had Nulato right on the river bank, and now they moved back about a mile and a half or 2 miles up on a hill on account of floods.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's just at home,
So, did you have a lot of flooding problems when you were younger?
I remember 2 that we had in 37 and one in 45, I think, but that's the last time.
So probably notice more flooding now than when you were younger?
No, less.
Oh, less
during the
flooding.
time during the time I was growing up, I said I remember 2 floods that we had.
So when they moved the town back a bit,
That was the reason.
oh, because of those initial floods.
Yeah.
Okay, I
And they
see.
never had any since then.
And how did you store food in the summer and in the winter?
In the summertime, usually, like our king salmon was dried and put away in caches, and like blueberries and salmonberries, they had cakes, barrel cakes, and that's what you put your berries away in.
And were they above ground, or did you have
Yeah, in
they
the
were
cache.
above?
Uh-huh.
Oh, the
Yeah.
barrel was in the cache.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
I see.
all winter long, whenever we want that, Grandma would always go out and, get a bowl full.
Mm,
Yeah.
that sounds
It
good.
was so good.
Yeah. Can you talk about or share a story about weather changes that you've experienced in your, either in Nulato or in your lifetime, that you've seen changes in weather?
Well, what I could think of really is that when I was growing up, we used to have real cold weather in winter time. It's not like that anymore, I don't think. You know, why it changed, I don't know. And I remember at home, we had a 2-story building, and in the summertime we had those window, what the heck you call it, screens. And I used to lay in bed in the morning and just hear those frogs. We had a lake about maybe a quarter of a mile back from the village, but you could just hear those frogs. And do you know that we don't have that anymore down there? What happened? I don't know.
You mean no more frogs?
No more frogs.
And how's the water? Does the water level, or is the lake still the same size, or?
No, it's not as big as it was.
Shrinking.
But they always say that the water that we get down there was for, really good water.
Mm-hmm. And have you noticed any kind of change in animal behavior because of the different weather that we've experienced?
You know what, I have to admit that I never did go out hunting or never anything like that. Our grandma wouldn't let us even fool with guns or anything, and even up to now, I'm leery of guns,
And is climate change a familiar topic for Athabascans?
I never hear them, but we've been living here for over 60 years, so what they talk about in the villages, I wouldn't know really.
Mm-hmm. Have you heard anything? I know you were one of the founders of the Fairbanks Native Association, correct? Have you heard anything yourself, or what people have talked about, like what's the biggest concern regarding weather or different things we've seen happening with the weather?
Not really. You have to, I mean, a lot of Native people don't go to meetings like I do. I never miss hardly, and I enjoy going to different meetings, not only FNA, but whenever they have gathering, I like to be involved to see what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And would you recommend that to then the younger generation that's growing up to be more involved?
They should. Again, their parents should encourage them to take part in whatever goes on. You don't see very many of that. It's sad because we're losing our language, we're losing our Indian singing.
Are there places in Alaska, like once named for fish or animals, that seem to no longer apply? Like, for example, Whitefish Lake that no longer has whitefish. I know you talked about that, the pond behind the village that didn't have any frogs. Was there any other areas like that you noticed a change where either animals appeared or disappeared from an area?
I'm just talking about the Nulato area that I remember, But other places have their own thing too, you know. They would notice if there's change.
That's true. Do you know, has Nulato ever had concerns about water shortage or water quality?
I never heard, but I know that we have that little stream right at the village where the hill comes down, and there's a stream that comes, and they say it's the best water where they took tests, you know, in winter time, not during the summer, but
That's okay. And let's see. And then can you just tell us a story maybe that you've had either when you were younger or even when you were in Fairbanks about like a cold weather story? Do you have any stories about cold weather?
they used to tell stories as I was growing up, but gosh, I would never remember unless someone else starts talking about it, and then I would catch here and there. Otherwise, I could never. But gee, sometimes it would go on for 3, 4 nights. Long ago, when I was a little girl, they used to go to one house, and a person would tell a story. It's just like reading a book. How the heck they could remember that, you know? But that's the way it was. That's their leisure time, and everybody enjoyed that. And I remember they used to say, when you're listening, you say, "Ahe, ahe." That means that you're alert and that you're listening to what's being said. So if you don't say anything, they know you're asleep or something, you know.
So passing down stories through
Uh-huh.
oral,
Yeah,
the traditions of oral language.
yeah, it was a beautiful thing. Like I said, those people used to go in one house, and then they tell the story, and they don't come to an end, but the next time it's continued, and you know, like a book. It's smart, very smart people.
And would it be stories that were made up, or would it be stories about things
From
you
way
needed
back,
to know?
from way back, stories from way back. And it's a training too, because it gets you to think, and then whatever is being told, you're supposed to get something out of it for your lifetime, you know, how to survive if you're out, get caught in the cold or something like that.
Okay. Let's see. Anything else you'd like to tell us or share with the younger generation that's coming up?
Well, I can't do that really, because time have changed so much. And if I was to tell the kids, the younger kids, about how things were, oh, there's no interest in it, you know, for them, because they don't know. But to me, it comes from here. Like I said, we're losing our native language and our native singing, and it really bothers me, because not too long ago, I met someone downtown and said, "Gee, Poldine, I just love to hear you talk." I said, "How come?" He said, "Because you always speak English, Indian, when you're around people that understands your language," and that's so true. It just brings that, you get that wonderful feeling when you're talking with someone that speaks your language. And I always do. If I know someone that speaks my language, I always talk my language.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what kind of phrase or what could we hear you say in Athabascan. What would be a good... Or what kind of animals were in Nulato? Like moose, probably, but was there caribou?
No, well, years ago, and about 10 years ago, there was a few caribou that came to the village, and then it went back up the Kaiko River, they said, from around Katia. Yeah.
So in English it's moose, but what is moose in Athabascan?
Danica.
Danica.
Danica. And our clan, I think there's 4 clans, you know, different. There's caribou is, see, Dalsin is one clan, and Dalsin. Caribou, it's so easy to remember. Dedeka is moose. Caribou is Mitsish. Mitsish, caribou.
How about
And that's what I belong to, the Caribou clan.
Caribou clan?
Uh-huh.
Did you have different words for wind?
Well, yes, they do, but I wouldn't remember, you know. Altsish is the wind itself. Altsish,
Is wind
wind.
or snow?
Tzik, snow is tzik.
Are there different words for different kind of ice? Like if it's
There is, but I wouldn't remember.
okay.
Same way with snow, in different stages of snow, it has different names. Nulato was, Nulato was the Indian name, and I guess the non-natives couldn't pronounce it, so they put Nulato. Nulato. That means ahead of the dark salmon. I guess the people used to gather there ahead of the fish that's coming up the Yukon.
So what about salmon? Do you remember the word for salmon?
Gosh, it's so doggone easy. I could. Gosh, is
I'm trying to think. What other fish would you have? Pike?
pike and sheefish and trout and graylings and those little white fish. We have all different kinds of fish, you know.
Yeah. So I guess that's it. And Anabase.
Uh-huh. And that my language, Anabasi, M, upriver from us it's B.
Oh, okay.
Basi, Masi.
Mase.
I always have to correct that.
That's fine. I have limited knowledge of the language, so very nice. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. I appreciate it.